Today we'll be taking a look at the Lingjihun Gipsy Danger figure. This is the second entry into the Lingjihun Pacific Rim action figure series. I'd like to pay a special thanks to INS Hobby for making this video possible and sending me this review sample, which I've been waiting nearly 2 months for as a result of the Canadian postal strike. If you like what you see here and you want to order this figure or any of the other Lingjihun Pacific Rim figures, you can use my link in the description to support the channel. With that being said, let's get started. Gipsy Danger stands at about 7.5 inches tall and features an impressive level of detail that really captures her appearance in Pacific Rim and Godzilla Kong the New Empire, apparently. The paint applications consist primarily of a metallic blue with other colors being thoughtfully used throughout the figure. A combination of red and white depicts some of the more decorative elements of Gipsy's armor, such as the 34 printed on both of the shoulder pads. A gunmetal paint is used in some areas where you might expect a lot of mechanical parts, such as elbows, hips, knees. And finally, a gold paint is used in areas where you might expect a specific metal that fulfills a special purpose, such as the springs on the back of the calves or the vents on the back of the torso. Where figures from previous company have resorted to smooth sculpts with painted details, you'll notice that all of the fine details throughout Gipsy's body are actually sculpted in. It reminds me a lot of the difference that you might expect a line marker to make on a Gundam model kit, for example. The level of sculpted detail is borderline obsessive, with some of even the asymmetric details in Gipsy's sculpt and appearance captured, especially on the back of the figure. Seriously, the longer you look at this thing, the more details you will notice. One area that seems a little bit undercooked is the reactor turbine on the chest. While the sculpt looks good, the complete absence of paint just leaves it feeling a little bit unfinished, especially when you compare it to the level of detail found everywhere else on the figure. It does stick out a little bit, seeing that it's the front and center of the figure, but there's enough detail everywhere else that it doesn't really bother me too much. Moving into articulation, we'll start at the head, which sits on a ball joint. Please note that there is wiring leading from the body into the head, meaning that you can't go too crazy with how much you move it. Next up are the shoulder pads, which are placed on a combination of hinge and ball joint to position them as needed. These are going to be really crucial to the rest of the arm articulation, which we will get into shortly. The shoulders can rotate a full 360 degrees around, and you'll notice that there are small metal plates on the chest of the figure corresponding to the arm that you're moving that will shift in place. This feature really brings the figure to life, and it reminds me a lot of the Mecha Life gimmick from the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen toy line from 2009. The shoulders are also on a double hinge system, which adds a much needed degree of freedom. One of the hinges on my left arm is crazy tight, so I try not to get too wild with it. Moving down, we have a standard bicep swivel atop of an elbow that only moves about 45 degrees. To me, this is an area of disappointment with the figure, and I believe that it's a result of just how much sculpt and detail there is in the original Gipsy design, and how much of that you would need to cut away entirely in order to fit an elbow that can go 90 degrees or more. The shoulder pads and the shoulder hinges that I talked about before do go a long way into capturing a lot of the dynamic poses that you might want to get, but there's only so much that you can do in the absence of a 90-degree elbow bend. The wrists are on a swivel hinge system, much like any other figure you have in your collection. The body has 2 main points of articulation. I can get a swiveling motion out of the upper joint in the chest torso area, and then there's a ball joint in the waist. Together, these joints work together to provide Gipsy with a really strong range of motion. As we get into the legs, the thighs connect in on a ball joint and can rotate in place. The entire leg can kick forward slightly more than 90 degrees, but it cannot kick backward as a result of colliding in with itself. The legs also swing out about 35 degrees or so. There are 2 knee joints, the bottom of which will reveal a piston as you extend it through its full range of motion. At the ankle, there is both a hinge and a rocker that are both severely limited just by the nature of the sculpt. To assist in positioning the feet, there is a hinge halfway through the foot. Now we'll get into the accessories, and with Gipsy Danger, there is a boatload. Pun fully intended. These accessories carry the same level of detail and sculpt as seen on the base Gipsy figure. I will say that a lot of these accessories fit very tightly onto the figure, and I really encourage you to use heat treatment like a hairdryer or a heat gun as needed to make things a little bit easier. In addition to the fists that come equipped out of the box, Gipsy comes with 3 pairs of alternate hands. The first is a pair of open, relaxed hands. The next is a set of hands that are meant to go with the shipping containers that Gipsy used in the confrontation with Leatherback at the shipping docks. One of these is a duo of containers, while the other is a trio of containers. Neither of them feature the showcase logo that was observed in the movie, but the detail and paint is really well done regardless. The next set of hands is associated with the boat, which is a total length of just under 7 inches long. It has an impressive level of detail, which includes individually painted life preservers. And there's also a tab on the boat that pegs into the hand to ensure a very secure connection. Lastly, the boat contains within it the magnet that's needed to turn on the light feature for Gipsy Danger, which we should talk about. Gipsy's electronics are handled differently from Crimson Typhoon in a couple of ways. The electronics are integrated into Gipsy Danger's body, which is why you don't want to move the head too much. To install the included LR621 batteries, you first have to remove the back panel from Gipsy Danger before using the included screwdriver to unscrew the battery compartment and then insert the batteries. The back panel for me was very difficult to remove. The connection is really secure to a fault if you ask me. I think there's a serious risk of damaging the shoulder fin things. I recommend using a relatively soft material, maybe something like a popsicle stick, to use the leverage to pry the back panel off for the first time. It was so difficult that I assumed maybe there was some dried paint in there, making the connection a little bit stronger than it needed to be. But once you've removed it the first time, subsequent attempts are easier to remove it. Once installed, you can wave the boat at the base of Gipsy's neck to toggle the light feature on and off. Moving back to the accessories, Gipsy comes with 2 plasma cannons as well as blast effects. If you want her to dual wield plasma cannons, you can do that. In the package, the blast effects come attached to the cannons themselves, and the connection between the blast effect and the cannons was so tight that I actually second guessed whether they were removable in the first place. I really struggled with this. I have married friends that I'm not sure their relationships are as strong as the connection between these effects and the cannons. I'm slightly concerned about the longevity of a piece that requires such monumental force to remove. Swapping out the arm pieces for the plasma cannons can be tricky, and again, I encourage you to use heat as needed. It can be tempting to apply pressure to the shoulder pads as you're trying to force the cannon on or off, and you really don't want to do this, so please do use heat if you're not getting anywhere. Gipsy also comes with her swords, which are equipped by removing and replacing the forearm guard pieces. These can be a little bit tricky to get on as there's a lot of geometry that you need to line up, but I'm not really worried about it in the same way that I'm worried about the plasma cannon effects, and once they're on, they're pretty secure. Finally, we have the elbow rocket pieces cast in an orange-red plastic. There are one for each elbow, and they are marked as such. These insert directly into the back of Gipsy's elbows. Even with the limitation in the elbow joints, I still feel as though there is enough accessories and enough engineering that you can get almost all of the poses that you're hoping to get out of Gipsy Danger. We'll wrap up this review with a little bit of size comparison footage. Following the debut of their Crimson Typhoon figure, Gipsy Danger is a really strong follow-up that has some ways of improving upon that first release while also falling short of it. The sculpt work is sublime, and it is highlighted by really thoughtful use of paint, and the accessories allow you to recreate most of your favorite scenes from the movie. Well, shy of those that might include battle damage or missing limbs. When it comes to articulation, there's a lot of robot here. There's a lot happening, and sometimes the sculpt just doesn't leave room for movement lest it collide with itself. It feels like the designers have worked really hard to make up for preserving the sculpt in some of their engineering decisions, but there are still some key areas where there's almost no articulation, most notably the ankles. If you live in North America and you're looking to pick this figure up, you can use my link in the description down below to support the channel and to buy it from INS Hobby, where it's about $110 US shipped to North America. That is a non-insignificant amount of money. I totally get that it's a decent chunk of change, and I hope that this video helped you determine whether or not this figure is for you. I'm very, very happy with it, and I'm looking forward to what comes down the line, because apparently they confirmed a whole bunch of other Jaegers that are going to use improved materials, so I'm looking forward to seeing those. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye!